Just a few quick notes. If you have any questions, you can either type them into the Q&A box or into the webinar chat box. That's how we will be addressing questions this evening. So those are your two options for questions. And we apologize for the technical difficulties with Eventive, and we appreciate that you joined us this evening. So it is my pleasure to introduce Aaron Maslansky, the moderator of Inside the Skev.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming tonight and watching the film, Dreams of Hope, and for being here to participate in this conversation. So I am really looking forward to talking with Dr. Henry Panyan, and he is really an amazing person. And just so everyone knows a little bit more background on Dr. Panyan, he's an American composer, arranger, conductor, educator, and professor in the Department of Music at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Dr. Panyan has produced, arranged, and conducted for a number of noted artists such as Stevie Wonder, the Winans, Chet Atkins, Ellis Marsalis with the Super Jazz Big Band, Eugenia Zuckerman, Aretha Franklin, the Blind Boys of Alabama, Chaka Khan, the Lionel Hampton Orchestra, and American Idol winners Carrie Underwood and Ruben Studdard. Panyan founded UAB Recording Studio, where award-winning jazz recordings by such groups as the UAB Gospel Choir and the UAB Jazz Ensemble have been produced. So, wow, what a career you've had. Quite amazing, and I'm just, like I said before we started, I'm kind of pinching myself that I have the opportunity to speak with you. But you've done quite a bit. How has Dreams of Hope been different than all these other projects that you've worked on?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for having on this webinar and for watching the film, of course. I don't know. I think that for me, every piece of music that I began to compose, you probably want to reach from your past to kind of come up with ideas. In this particular piece, though, in the music for the whole film, the whole idea was to try to be respectful of the Jewish culture. And because, of course, I'm not Jewish, as I mentioned in the film, but so in that research, just learning a whole lot about what I thought I knew, in part, it really changed me tremendously. This has been an enormous blessing and impactful on my life. So any composer will think about themes and harmonies and melodies and the appropriateness of what other idioms you might be including. So I think that's kind of typical. That's what I did.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of experience with just knowing people in the Jewish community or in Birmingham or other places that you've lived?
Well, I have a lot of friends who are Jewish, and a great number of my colleagues are Jewish. And so obviously studying music all my whole life, I've had a chance to kind of study music to a certain degree of many cultures. So, but that's the limit of it. I don't really go to any of the high holiday festivals or celebrations or commemorative services that the Jewish people have. Many of my friends are, but I just don't. So this is new to me, just really new.
Yeah, no, it is new, and the way that you incorporated everything, you must have pulled upon your illustrious background. But how did you get interested? I'm curious, after watching the film and just seeing what you did in such a short time period, really. How did you get interested in music and film? You're the filmmaker here. How did you, what got you started? Because obviously there's a lot of passion behind what you do.
Well, one of the things that I have been involved in a lot my career is technology. So we have a music technology degree program at UAB. And that involves every aspect of making music for video, music for the web, music for industrial presentations. So much of my work and my training has been singing in the opera, but conducting opera, you know, so understanding costumes, understanding staging. So I've been involved in the arts, but I think it really is technology. One of the courses that I teach is a multimedia production course at UAB. And in the old days, that may have just been film scoring.
Yeah.
But as everything has developed over the years, film and music, it's now not just writing for film, it's writing for CD-ROMs, it's writing for games, it's writing for, you know, so there are many opportunities. So in this course where we started out with the course just being film scoring, we had to learn a lot of those technologies. And I've always incorporated those technologies in what I do. I was very fortunate in the mid 80s when I was in graduate school, that a lot of this technology was just in its infancy. A lot of the things that we do now with film, it would just be cost prohibitive in those days for the average person to do. And you understand this, the things we do in recording studios, we just could not do them because they were cost prohibitive to make that quality of a project. So I was in graduate school when a lot of companies were beta testing a lot of these technologies. When the Macintosh first came out, when a lot of the digital sequencing software, when Avid was coming on the scene with Pro Tools and all that software. So it's been my whole career. But even the way we score music, you know, we always talk about composers having to write their music and go many, many days and years without even hearing their music perform. But with the virtue of technology, I'm able to orchestrate and hear it instantly. And that was a key to my having the opportunity to really to work, you know, with Stevie. And I have so many stories about that, you know, how just incorporating technology, and everyone knows that Stevie is somewhat considered a music technology guru in the industry. So I've been fortunate, Aaron, to just kind of have some things happen, and I just kind of navigate through them.
No, you definitely do. And, you know, just as a side note, I recently took a class on film audio just to, you know, learn more about the technical background. And my God, like what all this software can do, I just think about what it must have been like, you know, 30, 40 years ago. I don't know how you do it. And we had a final project where there's a couple people who were very technically savvy who were in the class. And this one guy, I mean, he's a film, you know, does a lot of film audio, and he did the project. He said, well, it took me an hour and a half, and he worked quick, you know, and it made me think here, like you had 6 weeks to really put on this amazing show, you know, and you gave it such thought and consideration. Should I do it? And you read about everything, and you really wanted to, you know, immerse yourself in the Jewish culture and see how it fits. And as you went through that process, I imagine that's where you were making your decision that, how do I actually make this happen? How did you make that happen?
Well, you know, that was the concert, and then there was the film. The film was, I don't want to say it was an afterthought, but it was. I mean, basically, the whole idea was just to put on a concert where the community could come together, that we could bring a cross-section of the community together. I wanted to write music or choose music and incorporate music and songs and just a whole atmosphere that would that everybody would feel welcome. But what really happened, if I can use the word magical, was that night after that concert had ended. I couldn't believe the response. It was just really overwhelming to me, even just to see, you know, big, like Chicago linemen on the Chicago Bear linemen coming up to me, giving me a hug, and we're like, whoa, you know, and then it was sobbing, you know, and then it wouldn't stop. And even days and days would go on, it wouldn't stop. Everybody was talking about it in the community. And so it was just unbelievable for me. And then Sally Downs and some of the other members of the community, the Violence of Hope Birmingham Committee, approached me about the possibility, how can we let this live on? Because we have 1,000, 1,300, whatever it was, there in that church that night. But everyone felt that, boy, a whole lot more people need to experience what we experienced that night. How can we do that? So the whole idea then was, can we do a documentary? And we always capture video footage. I don't do a concert without capturing it, but it was just basically to have some archival footage. We didn't decide really until like 3 days before the concert even that we were going to do multi-camera shots of it. So I got my students in my class to bring all the cameras there. I have my own recording studio. I got my chief engineer to come in and record it. We started walking through the church, just thinking about how beautiful it looked. We add a little light, a little color, and so all these things. I'm always thinking creatively, anyway. But it's just part of what we do. But once we had captured that, then the whole idea became, well, what should a film be?
Yeah.
Should it be just a documentary? I mean, like any documentary, behind the scenes, just kind of talking about what we had seen. But everyone, or what we had done, but everyone kept coming back to my experience, coming back to how it impacted me as an African-American man growing up in Birmingham, of all places, having seen the tragedy that, and even though I was just a little too young to experience, the civil rights movement in its height,
yeah,
I definitely was there to experience it, and my family members and everything. But the bottom line, though, is that just to seeing how this journey, they were similar, and how the story of triumph and over tragedy, and and there's similarities. And I don't know if people caught this. I'm always thinking about a double entendre. I'm always kind of thinking that way. And but when you think about the four artists who represented the film, the two female singers, the female dancer, and the female violinist, of course. In my mind, they were there to represent the four little girls who had lost their lives in the 16th Street Baptist Church. And we never really talk about that, but that was kind of in my mind, And so all these things. Wow. So and I can go on and just kind of talk about it. As I'm talking to you, I'm reliving some of these things in my mind. I think I watched every film from, of course, Schindler's List, but everything I could see, and I've always been big about World War II anyway, but not from the standpoint that I began to watch movies around World War II. For me, it was, Saving Private Ryan, because I'm liking all the tanks and the bombs, of course, I understand that, and I grew up with G.I. Joe figurines, I'm so, that's kind of, but talking about a shift, but anyway, I could talk all night. I'm going to stop here. I see some more.
No, that's okay. You're here to talk. That is such an interesting perspective of that the four women represent the four girls who were killed in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. And of course, the violin is being played, and that is a violin that was in the Holocaust. There's so many elements of symbolism here. And I mean, do you get feedback from people from all walks of life and talking about redemption?
Oh, absolutely. And many times when, a good film, or as a good song or a good book can do that. That's what art does. Art reflects our culture. It becomes a centerpiece that people can come together and talk about and share. And many times art can be used in ways that other means of communication cannot. And music has a way universally of touching the inner person in ways that words just never can. And there's a lot of talk about the affective domain, and I don't want to get into the psychology of music right now, but the whole idea of that is really very true. I mean, you can be in any place in your point in your life. You can be riding in your car and you hear a song that you hadn't heard in many, many years. And that song will take you back. You can remember what you had on, who you were with, what you were eating. So music can do that like unlike anything. And so my goal then was to find a way to have the music be appropriate and not necessarily take over the importance of the message, but to undergird it and support it. And, but not as background, just interwoven is the way I thought of that. Here's a story, here's music. It's all there together.
It's the connecting piece.
Exactly.
You know, you look at America right now, we are in such a bifurcated society. Everyone's breaking down to whatever separate group that they're part of, identity politics in many ways. And it makes us have a lot of anger towards each other. And it's hard for people, but on the other hand, you have people who are allies, who are, fighting for justice. And then you have the pandemic where people need to socially distance and separate and whatnot. And, you look back at the 60s, there was great music. People were able to come together with music and things like that. And now, because of different things and social media and everybody being in their own different reality, it makes it harder to come together. What can, music do to help bridge, these types of divisions?
Well, Dreams of Hope, for example, that night there were Jewish, Christian, Muslim, atheists, all in the 16th Street Baptist Church. And we rallied behind the cause of hope, triumph over tragedy. These are things that are common. I mean, I don't care if you're rich or poor, everybody goes through in their own ways these type of human experiences of tragedy and hope and loss and triumph. And I think that if we can find ways to come together and focus on those things that we have in common, more so than the things that divide us, the things that make us different, I think the world really could be a better place. And so that was one example. And the other thing, really, when I think about my own experiences growing up here in Birmingham, young people don't really care usually until someone, indoctrinates them. A lot of my friends were mixed races just because we had a common goal. We had to learn these band routines and band in the hot Alabama summer. And no one cared whether you're black and white. The only thing we cared about was whether we're going to get a break or whether these bees were stinging our legs. And when you do that for 15 weeks in the hot summer to get that show right, knowing that if one person messed up, it would be a reflection on everyone. Those kinds of experiences really do help change and it will help us to focus on the things that are important. So music it's been doing that for a long time.
Yeah. No, it has, and I think we need it more than ever. I think it's just something where we can all come together, like you're saying, and everyone has a common purpose in seeing the success of each other. I think that one of the things that sometimes brings us down is that some people think it's a zero-sum game, where if somebody else is excelling, that means that it's being taken from them, just by having equal opportunity for whatever you want to do in life. And really, if everyone's succeeding, then everyone's doing better. And here, you have everyone coming together in a place that had tragedy, and you're having this beautiful experience and everyone's enjoying it. No one's losing out from it. Everyone's gaining from that. It's a really an incredible symbol. So much symbolism that takes place here. Now, the violins, it was one violin that was being played that was from the Violins of Hope, and that was by Caitlin Edwards, right?
Yeah, that night, the Weinsteins had brought a number of the violins over. She actually chose the Auschwitz violin, which is a violin that was recovered and restored from that infamous concentration camp. Behind me, or behind the orchestra, if you saw centered, was the Heck violin. And that family had just given that violin and brought it so that it could be on display. And we recognized it was there. It wasn't supposed to be the centerpiece that night, but it ended up being. It was so beautiful. And they flew in from Toronto because they had not had an opportunity to see that violin restored. The family, from the Heck family. So just amazing. And you talked about symbolism, but the church we're in suffered the same kind of fate as many of those instruments. Those violins, I mean, it was bombed, it was destroyed, but yet it was restored, and such a beautiful place. And so not only were the lives, the girls, but also those relics, the violin and the church. So for them to be brought together as well, it just so many
Amazing
symbols in this, if you think about it.
Yeah. The church, I mean, was there actually any consideration to do it anywhere else besides there?
I think the committee had been discussing, no doubt, when they were looking at bringing Violins of Hope to Birmingham. It's my understanding that they were looking at doing, concerts, having there be opportunities for kids to see the violins, having a large education program, as it was here for a week or so or more. But then the reason basically the 16th Street Baptist Church came into play, I guess as the committee began to really look at everything they wanted, they said, boy, we really need an opening event. And they wanted me to kind of open an opening event, which was not supposed to, I guess, end up being sort of like turn out as big as it did, because it was just standing room only, and it was just amazing. But so again, it was just going to be an opening event, sort of anchoring with a large closing event, and then other things in the middle. So I think they had lectures at the synagogue, one of the synagogues, I believe, temples, I should say, maybe. Then there were educational things at the Jewish Educational Center, I believe, here in town. A lot of the schools were brought together. We had a concert on campus at the Alice Stevens Center with the Alabama Symphony, and so we were really glad to kind of open the door for everything that happened that week.
Oh yeah, how did you choose all the people that came, and how did you choose Caitlin Edwards?
Well, I had worked with Caitlin since she had been a teenager, I believe, when I first met her, and I had a chance to actually do some national recordings where I had her to perform, even while she was just that good, while she was in school at the Alabama School of Fine Arts. And then when we start thinking about writing a piece, again, I felt that, boy, she would be great to do it. I mean, if she was available, she would be available. And so, of course, all this is in the film. A lot of it's in the film. But choosing her and some of the singers, I know there are certain types of songs I wanted to have arranged, and from having worked so long, in music, I'll use it with any idea. I could kind of know who I want to be on the project. So it wasn't that difficult for me to think about putting together people if they could be available.
Yeah, you've got a good, I'm sure, a good contact list. just a small one. How did you land upon basing the song on Avinu Malkeinu?
That's a very, very good question. Because I did not know what song was considered appropriate. I did not know if there were specific songs, as it were, that that would commemorate the Holocaust, or were songs that were appropriate, or were really, I don't want to use the word common as, common, but prominent, I should say, in the Jewish faith.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that one of my colleagues, Craig Brandwine, whose office is right next to mine at the university, I said, Craig, I'm doing this concert. I said, can you give me an idea? I know the hymns and, gospel hymns and songs like that, and just typical Christian hymns. I said, what's similar in the Jewish faith? What's similar? Is there a melody? Is there something similar to Jesus love me? Yes, I know. Do you have something like that in the Jewish faith that everybody would know? And he said, "Here, take this book." And he just started going. He had it on his shelf. He pulled it. He said, "Here's a book of various things." Of course, I can read the music, but I don't know what's important, right? And so
Sure.
he began. Well, this is done here, and this was done there, and this is kind of done there. And I began to look at that, and then I began to listen to various other performances of certain things, and then do my own research to read up about Avinu Malkeinu and what that meant. And I said, boy, this prayer alone is just perfect for what this cause is. So then once I got the melody in my head, and then everything else, I just began to kind of think about what I would do with it, and I didn't want it to be so prominent. I kind of didn't want it to be prominent at all, because I didn't want people to focus on a hymn tune, right, or a chant. I'm showing my ignorance right now, right?
Sure.
So what I did was I said, okay, is there a way I can put it in and people don't recognize it, and just kind of. And so I did some things with it, and it was just really, really cool. People said, did I hear Avinu Malkeinu? I knew I heard Avinu Malkeinu, and that was great. Especially it was great when Ozzy asked me that. It was awesome that I just said, yes, it was. So there you are.
So you got it right.
I got it right. Right.
Do you enjoy, composing more so, or conducting, or, do you sing as well?
I have sung in choirs and in opera choruses, and occasionally done. So I've really basically been in music since I was in kindergarten, and that's really kind of all I've done.
Yeah.
I do a lot. No one will believe that I do a lot of different things, but it's just that music has been the center of all of that, and so I took flute and oboe and bassoon and choir and conducting, so that I could be able to just know about all these things, and I've been doing that for a long time. So, and when I joke about it all the time, being 6'3", growing up, my sister would listen to the Sound of Music. In those days, Sound of Music came on once or twice a year, and Wizard of Oz came on once or twice a year, and Ten Commandments came on once or twice a year. But I was just into these big productions. And so I go outside and play my buddies basketball and act tough and stuff like that. Then I come in the house with my sister and I watched all these shows, right, that she was watching. So I said, man, I really like this, and I'm marching bands, just the whole spectacle of all of that, the pomp and circumstance around that. And what I always like, I've been minister of music at a Catholic church. I've been a minister of music at a Baptist church. I've done Pentecostal apostolic churches. And I just love the high church, just the reverence of it all, and just the whole idea of people knowing where they need to be, when they need to be there, and making sure you're there. Just that whole experience, I've always enjoyed. enjoyed. So I guess I bring all that to the table whenever I go into a project. It drives a lot of people crazy. It really does. Because I'll be yeah. Why are you asking me about the flags? Why are you asking me about the drapes? Why are you? Shouldn't you be composing the music? No, I can't compose the music if that's going to be the wrong color. It really does mess with me a lot, and just because of the experiences that I've had.
Well, it's the full experience. It's not just music. It's, film is not just video. It's the music. It's everything combined. It's the full experience. And I think by having that, you have a different view of things than maybe most people who are in that industry, although I'm sure there are some who definitely do have, a full understanding. Many do. But who got you into it? I mean, was it your sister that got you into it, or were there people in your family that were in music?
So this is how it went. So when my sister was like in kindergarten, she's about a year older than me, and so the piano was bought for her, right? So she takes piano lessons, but then next year she does ballet. Next year she does modeling. And so she's doing all of these things, I start taking piano lessons. I'm thinking, okay, I'll do piano lessons this week. I'll do tennis next week. I start doing piano lessons and in the band, and I couldn't jump around. I think she messed it up for me because they saw her jumping around. They made me stick to it. You do it. So once I started taking piano lessons and also was doing band, and I was too little to lead marching band, but I was like a band's mascot because had a trombone when I was in kindergarten. I would ride behind the band with my little uniform on, the trombone in my hand. So it's just been, no one forced that on me, but it wasn't like I had a choice of doing all these different things. But I really, really liked it, and I've had some good and important mentors along the way. And it's not that there are many, it's just that at the right time, and that's critical. At the time, when I was in 6th and 7th grade, my great band director who came into my life, who stayed my band director all through high school, and just the way he was about, or is about, being particular and specific, and why are we having to do this for the 10th time? It looked good to me on the 4th time, do it again. And that kind of put a level of discipline in me that I think I've carried throughout my career. Then in college, there were certain professors who really not only taught me about being a great musician, but even more things about being a great man and being responsible, and just a lot of things I learned from some of my mentors and some of my professors there. And then even in graduate school, my graduate professor who took me under his wings. And so I think in everyone's life, if you're fortunate enough to have, and you will only have a few. Yeah. You can look at your life, and I think most people can. And of course, you can have a lot of friends and associates, but really, there'll only be a few people in your life who will have the ability and the capability of making a difference in your life that's meaningful along your journey. And I've been fortunate at every step to have some of these people, and who people I looked up to and admired, and all the way to people, I mentioned Stevie, of course, and other artists, but a person like that the world knows him, but they don't know the person like I know, the nice man he is. And he came into my life at a point when, I was just really getting started, and really was just, I'm asking him what he wants, Mr. Wonder, right? And he's just saying, just so kind and so considerate, and so I think that has made a difference. I think I have been really, really blessed, Aaron, along my journey.
Well, you have people who have invested in you, and I think that's the key with mentoring. If we can get people to, who really want to see you succeed because they see your potential, and then they make it their mission to help. And then you do that. I mean, look, you're a professor. You're doing the same thing for other people. You're having people like Caitlin Edwards come and really shine in this incredible moment. It's I think that is just such a beautiful thing. But the list of people that you have worked with just is incredible. I want to talk a little bit more about Stevie Wonder. How did you meet him? And talk about that a little bit more.
Believe it or not, I was actually in my office at the university, and the secretary called over to the studio, and she said, "You just got a phone call from Stevie Wonder, and he said he'll call you back." I said, "What?" I said, "What? Come on." And he did call back later that day and basically asked if I would arrange some music for him, for orchestra. By this time, I had done another project by the Winans that Quincy Jones had signed them, and I had been asked in graduate school to arrange some tracks on this record of a new artist that was being signed by Quincy Jones. And I had worked with them, and they weren't that big at that point. They were pretty big. But anyway, that album wins Grammys, Dove Awards, Stellars, and Stevie hears about that. And interesting, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but what I will say is that, so I do these arrangements for Stevie, send them out there very quickly, thinking that, I go out there and I have a great experience to tell, my children and my students. And when I got there, they had the rehearsal orchestra set up, and he basically said, "This is great. Rehearsal was great. Stevie want to come by your hotel room later on tonight, and we want to talk." And when I got to my hotel room, they had already set up keyboards and stuff in my room. I said, "What's going on?" "Well, he has some other music he'd like for you to listen to and maybe arrange." So I said, "What time's he coming?" He said, "Don't wait up, because it'll be late." So true enough, 2 a.m. in the morning, Stevie comes to the door with his bodyguard. So he's there in my little hotel room with keyboards and stuff. We were working on music. And I said, "Carol, you won't believe this. Stevie Wonder's in my bedroom, in my hotel room." And so my wife. So anyway, so what they said, "We really enjoyed you rehearsing. We have this little tour that's going to take place in about 3 weeks. Would you like to go?" I said, "Where is it?" They said, "To Europe." I said, when is it? 3 weeks to Europe? How long would be gone? "Oh, it'll be about a month." So they had to work it out, the university, to let me go, and the university was really kind to let me go. And what I thought would be a little 3-week, month-long experience has turned to now, 26, 27 years.
Wow.
And that's kind of the short of it, of the story, But it takes, these things take teamwork. And even I think about Dreams of Hope, I think about our great scriptwriter who was able to take all these ideas, David Macon, and flesh that out into a story, and a great writer. He's a young filmmaker, and so could not have done this. I mean, so I produced the film, but really there are just a lot of people involved in something like this. And I think about, Stevie, I think about an artist like that all those years, knowing that, you'll see him on stage smiling. But when you see the team of people that it takes to put on those big productions, and with Stevie and the technicians and all of that, and there we were working with all these orchestras throughout the world. So I think all those experiences have impacted me.
Yeah, how incredible! It's inspiring. I mean, how do we inspire more people to get into music and to be together and find these commonalities?
Well, first thing you said, how do we inspire young people to be in music? And I think that one of the things that we have to do and we have to appreciate is that when I was in elementary school, I had the luxury of just taking general music. It was a situation where I go into my general music class We sit down with music, and we had little instruments, and we would clap, and we play play our little instruments before we were musicians, to build, to identify aptitude. Was there anything inside that could be brought out? So many young people don't have those experiences where they just can participate at a young age. Stevie talks about this a lot. I talk about a lot about being discovered. He talks about if Barry Gordy hadn't discovered him, if he had not had that opportunity. So we've taken the arts and all of those creative things out of schools as if they aren't important. But in many ways, they are some of the most essential parts of the human experience, of civilization. We can go back 4,000, 5,000 years that we know of, and we can see how the arts were so important to those societies. We've got to get back to that, and we've got to provide opportunities for those who are less fortunate to have opportunities just to sit and explore in the arts. Because there's so many studies that have shown the trajectory and the path and the success of those who've had experiences in the arts. Mm-hmm. And what they may not go on to be, a great musician, but they may be lovers of the arts, but they may be CEO of Silicon Valley. They may be whomever. They may be a great professor. And they may just be a great parent, giving their kids opportunities to experience and enjoy the arts. So that's the first thing you said. And that's really very, very important to me. And that's kind of the kind of thing that I'm really heavily involved in.
Yeah. Well, I think that the arts are so important because you look at the way the world's changing so quickly, especially, right now with the pandemic, and jobs change and things like that. And certain jobs are going to be, taken over by artificial intelligence. And I think we have to be prepared for that. But the arts, well, they also might be in certain ways, supplemented or changed by artificial intelligence. There's a huge human component to it, and it gives us ways to think in different manners. And I think in addition to just being lovers of the arts or being musicians or being, heads of companies, it's just giving people a different way of thinking narrowly and to be able to think outside the box, which is what's key for all of us.
Oh, I think so. I think that just an opportunity to explore. I mean, because I'm an educator, I get to see all types.
Sure.
But usually within the first day of class, when I meet a student, I hate to say this because it may sound judgmental, but you can really size up that individual. Or let me put it this way, you can see that spark that's inside of them, even if they haven't seen it or don't know how to get it out. And I usually can recognize who will go how far in a short period of time, in my class, or because I see how hungry they are. And sometimes it's not the most talented. Sometimes the one that's not that has had the best opportunities. It is that one who really, really is hungry for it and is willing to put the time in to pay their dues. And I have more stories about that. But I think we all have to do our part to give opportunities, because I think from a young age, if young children have an opportunity to participate in the arts together, they will grow up recognizing the importance of the arts and what it does just to make the world a better place. And I think if, you think of things we see in the news as we are all watching, and I said, you all could just stop and sing a song together. Y'all would be all right.
That's right. It's so right. It would get people to lay down. It would relax people, and we'd all be singing together. I mean, you're so right. And you're doing some things, your UAB recording studio, that is a way to help inspire the next generation, right? What you're doing.
We have that program, and we have a number of programs. I am really involved in a program that we call the Woodlawn Music Tech Arts Academy, and what it does is it brings young people together. They can come to my own studio, which is Audio State 55. We have labs there, and fortunately, we have a partnership with UAB. We have a partnership with Berkeley, and what will happen there? Kids will register for music technology in their schools in Birmingham, and are bused over to our labs, and then my staff at Audio State and some of my students, my upper level students at the university, will teach them throughout the school year, and they get credit for music technology. Then in the summertime, we will feed the kids. They don't have to pay. They come. The fed, we keep them from 9 to 4. It wears everybody out, but we do that. And by the time they're through with us, we'll have 4 or 5 sessions, week-long sessions. They've written maybe 100 songs. They're producing. They're doing their videos. They're acting, and all of that just to get them exposure. And I'm just so fortunate that many times what we'll do the last few years, we brought in a friend of mine who did a lot of songs for Straight Outta Compton, a great composer, brought him in, and they were surprised. We brought in my friends from American Idol. We zoomed them in, and they thought they were watching American Idol, but they were behind the scenes to see American Idol. Tonight Show, my friends there. When the movie The Avengers was coming out, we were able to get some of the producers and arrangers and scorers and supervisors of that to sit on the couch and just talk to our kids on Zoom about making of the movie The Avengers and things like that. Because and then of course the American Idol people I work with, we'll have them they're talking to them. But the whole idea is, if you can feel that you can just get next to someone and touch them, you will feel as if maybe I can do that. It's one thing to read about it or to see it on television or see it, even in a video. But if someone tells you, this is how I did it, this was my journey, and what we do in those programs, we're not judgmental. Yeah. We're just like, get in there and do it, get in there and do it. We have plenty of time to be judgmental and to refine it, but we really want to encourage creativity, and that's how that's done. So we've set up a bunch of, I won't say a bunch of these little academies. We were fortunate to do 2 in Hawaii. We have one here. We've built a program for in Baton Rouge now at Southern University there. We've put one in Tuskegee at Macon County Schools. At the American University in Cairo, Egypt, built a program that then had us to come out there and build up their labs and establish a program there. So, and then throughout America, we've been involved in little church programs here, or sometimes churches will have a lot of funds. They all want to put a little camp, because here's the deal. It's about the technology. Everybody wants to be Jay-Z or Beyonce, right?
Sure.
But they don't recognize that there are just as many opportunities, probably more long-lasting opportunities, for those people who put that choreography together or made those beats or program that music or produce that record, and they're long-lasting. So we teach all of that, and that is what we're trying to do. I mean, it's one thing to wear the chain and wear the pants and wear the paraphernalia, but it's another thing to understand what songwriting royalties mean, producing and all of that. So those are the kinds of things we're involved in, and we will continue to do it as long as we can.
It's amazing. One of the questions we have coming through here is, what's next for this wonderful film? And is it being entered into other film festivals?
We have submitted it to other film festivals, and other film festivals, a few have asked us to submit it. We were just so amazingly surprised that PBS picked it up and through American Public Television, and I think it's still playing. I mean, since February, I think now it's over 400 some broadcasts around America. Unbelievable. And cities like Chicago and New York and some of these major markets. So we're hoping to, and people are asking about a DVD set. We're hoping that we can kind of, turn it into a DVD set that would be a nice commemorative piece with a nice booklet and all of that. So we're talking about that. And, you know, and we just hope that, you know, the film would be able to now have some opportunities to be shown internationally, because right now I think it's only been shown in this country. And so, but we're just thrilled and we're on for the ride. We just can't believe that it has taken off like it has. And the reception to Dreams of Hope has been remarkable. And we just thank everybody for your support.
Yeah.
I know all the committee members and all the local people here who were so involved in making this. And I mentioned a few of them. We're just grateful to them and support we've gotten from even UAB and the School of Medicine, UAB Medicine and Dr. Selwyn Vickers. Just the community came together, our mayor's office. So it's great when you can do something like this that the community can rally behind.
Yeah.
And now I'm just thrilled that it seems that people are, across the country at least are experiencing our little production.
Well, it's inspiring people, and I thank you for making it. It really is quite the film, and I hope that the feeling of being together and shared experience and redemption and hope, especially right now, a couple days after Yom Kippur, which is day about redeeming and for the Jewish faith, I think that we all need to kind of take that message and keep going. What do you want to leave the audience here with as some of your final thoughts?
I guess, the film is beautiful, the music is beautiful, but let's remember the message. I think that if each one would reach out and touch one and recognize that we are all the same, we have more in common than we do the things that divide us or separate us. And that there is hope. I'm encouraged, like I say in that film. I'm not deterred. I'm not jaded. And I can say with all the trouble that we see in the world, I'm not even surprised. It's just basically demonstrates that our work is very, very important and that we have to continue in our own ways to try to make a difference in this world. This is the world we live in, and we need to try to make a difference. And so I'm encouraged, and I will not be deterred from that. And I want everyone, just to have dreams of hope.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And thank you everybody in the audience for being here. And please join us on October 14th for our next discussion in the series, They Ain't Ready for Me. Please register online. The link is in the chat and it's also on the JCC's website. But thank you very, very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, and thank you all.
Dr. Panyon, Aaron, thank you so much. The JCC is grateful. Film is amazing. I promise that Eileen and I will share it with our film festival colleagues. To everyone who joined us this evening, thank you. As Aaron said, we'll see you hopefully on the 14th for our next discussion. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Take care and be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.